How you doing? I'm Randy. I had posted this on Facebook and people went crazy over it and were kept asking me about telling them how to do it, so to me it was just easiest to make a video. I wanted to find something that I could make maintaining my 3D printers easier. It had to be something that was also aesthetically pleasing. This is what I came out with. They sit on these shelving unit. You can get it. I think, each big box store has probably their own version of it. I think it's just the ends, how they clip is just slightly different. But from what I've seen, I've bought in a bunch of different types and they're all more or less the same thing. Each shelf rated for like 2,500 pounds. So these are like super heavy duty. I got these at Sam's Club. I don't know what you have around you guys, but yeah, these just slide out. Easy access to the back. Here I'm going to go over some of the tools I used and materials. This right here is my pocket hole jig. You don't necessarily need to have one of these depending on how you do it. I have a drill to put in screws. This is an impact driver. Regular drill for drilling holes. Screws, obviously. These are screws for the pocket hole jig. These are my handles for the cabinet front. Then we have this isolation foam. I think it's like weather strip, more or less. Let's see, this is edge banding, an iron to put on the edge banding. This is an edge banding cutter. This is the plywood I use. I'm in the concrete industry, so I wanted something I didn't want to have to finish, ideally. I just kind of wanted to, get it done as quick as I could make them. And technically this stuff is 3/4 of an inch, but when you measure it, it's 5/8. I don't know if you can tell, there's like a lot of plies in here. So it's actually like really durable. It's a lot more durable than standard plywood. Some people may bring up MDF. MDF could work, but I would definitely not use it for the side rails that you're going to screw the drawer slides to. I think it could work for the top and the bottom, but you would have to use plywood on the sides because screws into plywood and you're relying on 3D printers being supported by that in MDF feels like a recipe for disaster. Circular saw, you need some type of saw. Circular saw at a minimum. I would definitely say a table saw or a track saw would be better, but you can use a circular saw. And then this right here is called slotted angle. It's 1.5 inch, 14 gauge from Home Depot. These are the drawer slides I used. These are 24 inch, 150 pound. I would recommend that your total weight of your 3D printer if you're using an AMS or if not, in your filament, once you add up all that weight, I would say a good target would be 3 times the weight. I don't really have any scientific proof behind that, but I feel that's a good number to stick with. Standard drawer slides are like 100 pounds. I actually got these, they were about 6 pairs for $50, which is really cheap. If you go looking for them, you're gonna realize that's a pretty good price. I'll put the link for those down below. You need to measure to see what size your shelves are. I think these, even though they're a different brand, I think most of these are almost the same. So you need to know the depth this way. For me, I got, take this measurement, probably take off of it 1/8 of an inch. So I got 22 3/8. And then this way, I have, well, let's just say 6 feet, close enough. So now the formula that you want to use is, because clearly you need to have some space between these. So I'd recommend, I said 72 inches, take off 1 inch, and then divide by 4. That'll be the width of each one. That gives you about 1/4 inch place of space between them and 1/8 inch on the end, and that should be enough. I made mine up top a little bit tighter than I probably should have. I mean, they fit good, but I didn't give myself much play. Now regarding pocket hole screws, If you don't really care if there's a screw showing on the top of the platform, then I would probably skip that step. It's a little unnecessary. The whole reason I do it is just so you don't see the screws. Regarding edge banding, if you don't care if you see the edges of the plywood, skip the edge banding. Unnecessary. For me, I kind of wanted it to look a little more finished, so that's why I chose to use edge banding. This is the front. We're gonna make sure that these holes line up with the front because these are gonna be what screws in the faceplate. So we just have to make sure that they're the same direction. Now these are gonna get screwed in from the bottom, but what I like to do if I'm doing pocket hole screws is you can either clamp them, or if it doesn't really matter that much, I just use a brad nailer and fire in a couple brad nails before I put the screws in, just so it stays lined up, okay? I didn't show a brad nailer at the beginning, but you don't really have to do this step, but for me, I feel it's a bit more accurate. Sometimes if your boards ain't straight, you should start on one end, get it flush, and then you work to the other end. Don't put a nail on one end and then a nail on the other end, and then try to like straighten it out. Your best bet is you start from one end and then you just make it flush as you go down, okay? Sliding it in or out. So you see now, because this one had a little bit of a bow. So now I gotta just pull it out of here so it's lined up with the edge. That's good. Now I can put the screws in. This piece is the top. The top is the longer of the two pieces. Sometimes it's good to think ahead and drill holes or do certain things before they'll get put in place. For example, like this drawer front, I painted it off camera, but I got to drill the holes for the handle. It'll be a lot easier to do it now than when the whole thing's assembled. Like previously, I'm going to use the brad nailer and secure this in place before I put the screws in to help make sure it stays aligned, because it's important, at least for aesthetic reasons, that the edges line up. Now starting the most critical part, the drawer slides. First thing I do, one thing I forgot to mention is these are soft close. Soft close I think is actually probably pretty important for these because it actually helps keep them shut. If you have regular drawer slides, they could just kind of slide in and out, but the fact that they're soft close helps keep them shut. So I think they would definitely be important to have soft close. So the first thing you got to do is separate these. There's usually like a little tab like this. See that? We'll pull that out. Both of those out. That's going to go on this top piece. Okay. Now, we set these in here, and previously I had just a couple strips because they can't be up tight against, there's not gonna be enough room. So they gotta be set up off of the surface a little bit. So I use two pieces of this. It totals up to be 1/4 of an inch, all right? So you just shim it up, slide them to the front, okay? Take the screws. Figure at least 3 screws per side. All right, so this side's on. I take these off. Same thing over here. Shim this up. Regarding drawer slides, they can be extremely frustrating. Trust me, I know. You have to make sure that they are plumb and parallel. And where the inside mounts has to be exactly 1/2 inch away from each side, okay? So whatever this measurement is, should be 1 inch shorter, because you got a 1/2 inch on this side, 1/2 inch on this side. So to determine that, grab my tape. I have 16, what do we got? 16 and a half. 16 and a half. So my inside needs to be 15 and a half. All right, now I said I needed 15 and a half inches for the inside. All right, now I always prefer to have the long runners as one full piece, meaning I have a shorter piece on the inside. Now this piece is just to keep this from rocking like this, because if it does, it's gonna bind up and that's gonna be an issue that you're not gonna wanna deal with. So if I do the math, I got 15 and a half inches. Now my plywood is 5/8. Most of the time you guys will be using 3/4, but mine's 5/8. So this piece in the middle ends up being 14 1/4. So now I'm just gonna assemble this whole thing first. And again, I just use a couple brad nails to hold this. Now I forgot to mention, this is the bottom, okay? The top, I cut the strips 2 inch, 1 3/4 inches. The 2 inch strips go on the bottom. The bottom is the shorter piece, all right? 1 3/4 goes on the top. So, all right, now I got this assembled. Now it's just to screw it on, okay? So, I had mentioned earlier, you didn't need to use pocket hole screws necessarily. And since this is going to be on the bottom, I don't care if you see the screws, because you're not going to see the screws because it's the bottom. So now you just make sure this is perfectly centered. I've been doing construction my whole life, so I can generally eye up where this is. If you're not good at that, you can just make sure you put a line. You don't want the screws going off the edge. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that this piece of plywood, which is kind of the only one I have left, was a little warped. Once I secure it in, it's going to end up not being an issue, but just a bit of a nuisance at the moment. Okay, you'll see one side is flush and the other side's hanging off. When I went to build this project, I thought, okay, I got 24-inch shelves. I need to order 24-inch drawer slides, right? Not even thinking, right? Because I'll just go in and I'm like, I'm just going to figure this out as I go. But the shelves are 24 inches, but the inside where everything sits is only 22 inches. So I'm like, is this going to be an issue? No, and actually I'm kind of glad that I did get to 24 inch because it hangs off, it just gives us a little bit more play on the top. It hangs off slightly off the back of the shelves, but to me that doesn't really matter. But 24 inches is better, right? A little bit more room to put your stuff and have room for wires and whatnot. So That's why we went with that. Okay. All right, so that's the front. So now let's just set these in, okay? Same thing as before. I use these little spacers, okay? Set that up on each side, and we screw these in, just like we did the inside. All right. Now I line this front up with the front of it. That's how I ended up doing it before. So hopefully I remember right. It can get annoying sometimes. Now the way it's going to be held in is, see how these are like a channel, okay? So now the plywood's going to sit on here, and then it's going to be like essentially clamped onto this. So when the weight of the printer in the front comes down, it can't lift up because this bar is going to be holding it. It's going to be clamped between here and here. Now I'm going to apply the brackets that actually hold it to the shelves. You have to check ahead of time and make sure that these ain't going to interfere with the cross members that go across the shelves. So I had already measured that, and from this edge, because it'll be flipped like this, you got to make sure you got it orientated right. From this edge, between 3 and 4 inches is going to be the bracket. So I can't put this in that area. So I have to have a nut and a bolt that goes through here. So on this side, it's not going to work because it's going to interfere with these slides. So if I measure it out, it's good to just mark it on the board. Go, okay, 3 inches, 4 inches, I can't have anything in this area. So I know I can put one here, and then the one on this side is kind of fine wherever it is. All right, now from this edge, I can go in about 3/8 of an inch once you do the math, okay? It'll fit underneath the slot that it's going to be sitting in. So if I go about 3/8 of an inch, over here, that's going to work, okay? Same thing with this side. It's about 3/8, and that's good. All right, now I just drill the holes. To me, I just pick the ones that are round, not those oblong ones. It doesn't matter though. Now I just get the bolts started. I got the bolt, washer. All I happen to have laying around for nuts, some wing nuts, but that's okay. That'll work. Now we're just gonna leave these, just barely gonna put these on. Just enough to hold it in place. You'll see, because it's gonna be a pain after if you can't tighten them up yet. And putting them on after is gonna be a wicked nuisance. So if you just get them started, it's gonna save you a lot of headache when we're gonna put these on. Now it really doesn't matter if you have the brackets like this or like this. I just chose to have them like this. I don't know, they look a little bit more professional, I guess. Not that you're gonna see them anyways, because they're underneath. A lot of people were asking exactly how this part went. So, well, now you know. All right, last thing we got to do prior to putting it on is we use this weatherproofing strip that'll help isolate the vibrations from one to the next. Now this is something Travis from Print Farm Academy, I seen his setup, so essentially I'm just sort of building off of that. This ain't like my initial idea or original idea. I'd say the slides maybe, but not the rest of it. I just put it in between on these, on this end. It's ready to go in. Now the reason I told you to leave these loose is because this has to fit down into that slot. And now you're gonna have a little bit of resistance with this foam too. So you just gotta keep that in mind. So you gotta just think about it that we gotta just get these to clear underneath that panel, that notch. Okay? You're gonna just feel under there with your fingers. All right, that's it. They're in. Now so you just tighten these on and then slide the panel on the front. I was kind of stupid and tried to put these in last time. Actually, I did put them in last time and I had the top pin on, so I was fighting with it like an idiot, but not this time. Then you just slide it on. And then sometimes it's a little tight to get it on initially. And that's it. So several people had commented on that Facebook post, did you anchor it to the wall? I did not anchor it to the wall. I don't have young kids, and I know the shelving is heavy enough that it shouldn't be a concern. But I did think about it further and thought, hey, I got a 16-year-old son. Maybe he's got some friends over, who knows? Probably a good idea to anchor it to the wall. So I did put a couple screws into the wall, so I know it shouldn't go anywhere. So I'm gonna try taking them all out and see what happens. It's kind of scary. Do it this way, in the end. That way if the middle goes, I can catch it, hopefully. It worked. So for the wiring, I used an extra of the beams that came with these shelves, okay? You can see I tried to find a long power strip so the cords didn't have to run any further than they had to. When you get the AMSs and stuff, that's when it starts to like have a ton of extra wires. And then I had to have a second power strip here to run the adapters. It's hard to tell. I actually ended up just gluing or double-sided taping the adapters for the AMSs there on the wall. But yeah, I wasn't exactly sure how the wiring was going to go. I knew it was going to be something I'd have to address, but I figured I'd just figure it out as it goes. So I had to have the wires come over this beam here, because if not, they were kind of getting in the way and they wouldn't be able to shut the slides all the way. But this seems to work. People had asked about the poop too. So I actually made this. I mounted a plate to the bottom so it stays right in the same spot. And then, yeah, to empty it, just pull it out. It's as simple as that. So I hope this video was helpful for some of you. I do plan to make more things in the future. I'm always coming up with these crazy ideas. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but most of the time they work. So if you enjoyed it, like and subscribe.